This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
When's the last time I saw you in person?
I was trying to think about that. Yeah.
I mean, obviously
4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Except for I see you running every day. So
Right. You got to start giving me a honk or something, thanks to social media, I feel like we've stayed in touch. But so yeah, everybody listening, today's guest, Chandler Sommerfeldt.
Yeah.
Did I pronounce it right?
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like every other podcast guest, I get all like nervous about the last name, and then I pronounce them weird. Anyway, so we worked together, just trying to figure out how many years ago that was, but it's a long time ago.
Yeah. So I moved to Durango almost 6 years ago, and working at the Herald was my first job.
Yeah.
Because I quit what I was doing in Illinois, quit my job, just picked up at the Herald, and that's when I met you, but then I didn't work there very long. So, it had been like 5 years ago by now.
It's cool. It's fun to see you in person again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And since then, you've done a lot of things. That's why I'm excited to pick your brain. But you're a podcast host.
Yeah.
So your show's called The Athlete Mom Project, which I'm excited to dig into that a little bit. And then you've got your coaching agency with Chan You Can, and this great content that you put out on social media and all these things that you're doing. And so it's been fun to watch because I got to see you for like a brief moment of the story of and we were selling and doing the thing, and then now I've kind of seen you, I don't know, I'll say step into your element
for sure
a little bit more and kind of thrive. And it's fun because you can tell when somebody's doing what they're meant to be doing. You can just tell. And I can tell that with you. So I'm excited to pick your brain, learn about the coaching stuff. I love the Athlete Mom Project idea. Before we dive into all that, I think it'd be valuable to hear a little bit more about your story.
Cool.
And, I know that you pride yourself in being an athlete, but I know that wasn't always, always the case, or always on the, I don't know what you'd call it. For a moment in time, it was, there was a chance that it was going to be taken from you a little.
For sure. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, wow. Like, I don't even know where to start. I appreciate you saying about stepping into your own kind of thing. Because I think in the industry of doing that, you can feel a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And so just really riding that wave of like, what are we meant to do? And growing up, I've always been in sports, and I had 3 knee surgeries before I turned 21. And that's really where the evolution of all of this started, but I didn't know it then.
Yeah.
And so back then, having 3 knee surgeries, I don't like being told no, first of all, but was told that I'd never be an athlete. And I navigated that and went through crazy weight loss, weight gain journeys, hormone issues, just a whole host of really bad things, while also still performing as an athlete. And to the point where I lost my period for 6 years, and then I was told I would never be a mom. So as Ben alluded to, like, I now have my signature program and podcast is the Athlete Mom Project.
Right.
And so it's kind of this story of, I was told I would not be an athlete to the capacity that I knew before my surgeries, and then was told that I wouldn't be a mom, or it would be very hard to become a mom. And so now my story is I'm both, and also helping other women who maybe felt like they were athletes at one point and are not anymore since becoming a mom, like reclaim that identity about themselves.
I love it. Yeah. Tell me more about the injuries, because I talked to a lot of, and we both, our spheres overlap a little bit in the world of endurance sports and endurance athletes. But, injuries, it's a recurring theme with so many people that I talk to, and I deal with it, too. It's like being injury prone, and the impact that has on our mental state, our mental health. Walk me through what that chapter was like with multiple surgeries, kind of this identity of, being an athlete, and how you kind of worked through it. Yeah.
It's the question that I ask a lot, even to myself. So even right now, I competed in jiu-jitsu, my first competition ever as a blue belt 2 months ago, and got my second and third rib on the front, and it connects all the way back misplaced. And so I have that going on, plus deep tissue. And so it's, again, this identity crisis of like, who am I without movement, or to the capacity that we know? And so especially in the endurance world, that can be a huge identity. Like, and people in that realm might only identify as so-and-so who can do X, Y, Z.
Right.
And then when you're injured, it makes you reflect on like, who am I without that? And my saying is movement is medicine. And I think to any capacity, even when we're injured, we can still be able to find movement to a different degree. And so I didn't know it back then, but after my first knee surgery, I gained a ton of weight. And so not only was I not the athlete that I knew, but I was also like heavier and like felt foreign in my body. And so that's where like the core principles that I work with athletes on starts with mindset, because it's like you have movement, you have nutrition, all that's great. That lets us do the things that we want to do physically, but without the mindset piece and like protecting that, like you can only go so far, in the physical world. And so after having my first knee surgery, I was like, I'm never going through this again. Yeah, I had 2 more knee surgeries. And that's really where like I started to figure out to my core who I wanted to be. And I lived in Illinois. I worked corporate. I actually worked in big pharma at the time. And so it was like I was still going down this path that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I didn't really find that until moving to Durango. And it goes back to like the mindset piece of like, who are we outside of what our bodies can physically do?
Tell me more about that. So, because it sounds like you also, experienced I'll just call it an identity crisis, for lack of a better term. And then obviously, you help people through versions of that, as well. But that idea, because just help me unpack it a little bit of the movement being medicine, and then our mindset's kind of being the foundation of it all. But then you have this thing, an injury or whatever that impacts the mind and the ability to move.
Yeah.
How did you handle it, and what are your kind of advice to somebody that's maybe dealing with something like that?
Yeah. So movement is medicine. I think often people think about it as like, I just crushed that workout, or I just hit a PR doing this, or I ran further than I've ever ran. And so there's this like element of the positive endorphins of movement. Like I felt like shit, or can I swear in here?
Yes. This is a safe space.
Yeah. I feel like crap, or like we're feeling really frustrated, or we had a hard day at work, and it's just like I get to go move my body and I feel good. And we think about movement as medicine in that capacity. But really, there's a deeper level of like the neuroplasticity aspect and the ability to like rewire our brain by movement. And it's not always just the physical aspect of like getting your heart rate up and burning it.
It doesn't have to be like a CrossFit walk.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so I early postpartum, I worked with a coach that was like trauma certified, and to a degree, all humans experience trauma. Like we come into this world trauma, and we're living our life trying to like navigate that. And so like, why do we do the things that we do? And so learning about that in the movement as medicine aspect in that realm of like, when you're frustrated, you can like put your hands up against the wall and like push really hard, or you can like stomp your feet, or you can clench, or you can do like tapping and things like that. Or that's like a form of movement that is letting like, emotions or energy in motion, right? So like you think about an endurance athlete or an athlete in general, and then they get injured and they can't go do the thing, right? And so there are other ways to utilize movement to kind of feel safe in our body, I guess.
Because of the impact on the mind, which
and nervous system,
because somebody explained it to me once really well, that you can't work on your body without working on your mind, because your mind is part of your body. Like they're connected. And I don't know, it was described to me in such a simple way that it helped me comprehend like how, because I've always understood it, I think, intuitively. But when I realized like, oh yeah, of course, if you're working on if you're working on your body, you're working on your mind. If you're working on your mind, you're working on your body, because they're connected like that.
Yeah. But it's easy when it's easy. When it's hard, or like your body breaks down, or you have stress, then it becomes hard, right? So a theme that has really served me, and I work with athletes, I work with moms, I work with athlete moms in general. So there's like these different pillars, but in general, as a human, I learned something a long time ago that really served me. And so when we think about load versus capacity, so, okay, let's go into the world of endurance. Like capacity is high, right? Especially like, ultra, you're running 100 miles, like the ability to do that, you have to have high capacity, but also other things in your life have to add up to allow for that. So, especially like, let's say moms, for example, they are not sleeping. Maybe maybe they're a stay-at-home mom, or maybe they're working off of one income to support their family. Like there's all of these nuances, and people don't realize that that is part of your overall capacity. And so now you have this person that wants to like go run their first marathon or go maybe run an ultra for the first time, do those things. And they're not able to be in alignment of like, wow, like I see all of these other areas in my life that are taking up my capacity to do the thing. And that's where the mindset piece comes in, is like, we're a whole system, not just like, if I eat right and train right, I will be able to do this. It's like, what does all other areas of your life look like? And that's the capacity component that I think most people struggle to identify or acknowledge about themselves.
And the idea would be that if we're aware of the capacity holistically, that then we have, I don't know, more realistic expectations for the load. Is that kind of like, or being aware of it so we can make the changes that we need to elsewhere?
Yeah. So like, think about like capacity as, okay, let's say we have this like threshold of like what that is. Recovery plays a role, nutrition, maybe you have a lingering injury, like stress, home life, relationships, all of these things, right? So like, if you could see this, like if this is my overall capacity and then all of these buckets, right? If I don't manage those well, then I'm not going to have the output to do the next thing. So a good example could be like a mom that, is not sleeping, is a stay-at-home mom, but then now she wants to go run a marathon for the first time because she's like having an identity crisis and wants to push her limits. So she starts this training program and maybe on the third movement tweaks her back. And now she's afraid to do the thing because she hurt her back in this area. And all of a sudden we're looking at the source of the pain as the problem and not being able to reflect on like, how did I get here? Exactly. Yeah. And so especially in the endurance world, when like the capacity is high, we have to we exercise or work out for the opportunity to recover. And that is like a foundation for all humans. And I think we just look at it as like, well, so-and-so got to do this, I should be able to do it too, versus like, we're different humans. So what does my capacity look like versus the next person?
Yeah. Which I like that. And it's a fresh perspective on it too, because especially now with social media and Instagram and whatever, it's so easy to, get into the kind of comparison trap. And you're seeing a sliver of that story, a sliver of what, I mean, for some people, that's all they have to do is train and run or whatever. That's funny that you bring that up, because now that I think about it, like I'm injury prone, and it's probably because I don't sleep as good as I should.
Well, and you're doing a lot. So like your load is high.
Right.
Right. And so it's if anything, like you can't change what you don't know. So it's the awareness piece. Yeah. And when you can create awareness, you can contemplate where that's showing up in your life.
Yeah.
And so I got injured in jiu-jitsu 2 months ago competing, but when I reflect back on it, I did a 50K relay with a client the weekend before. I traveled solo with my 3-year-old, slept in a van for an entire week. He got sick, like all of those things. And I look at it and it's like, at first I wanted to blame my body, but it's like, I was asking too much load for the capacity that I had, and then I had to go compete, which was a fight or flight thing. And so my body broke down. And again, in the endurance world, it's like we're all injury prone. Well, it's because we're pushing the threshold of what our capacity is.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. So yeah, and even like you said, even just being aware of it, I think is kind of the takeaway there, because you either then can change the expectations or make adjustments.
Yeah.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
For whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm interested on the Athlete Mom project, the Athlete Mom concept fascinates me. I work with a lot of working moms. I'm married to a athlete mom.
Yeah.
She ran her first marathon last year, actually.
Hell yeah.
She's training for a half marathon right now. And it was so fun. I ran the marathon with her, and it's funny because it was her first marathon and it was my second best marathon. And I stuck with her for her, like she's definitely a better natural athlete than I am. But there's I don't know. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for working mothers, like because moms have to carry. There's so much of the weight of the household.
The small load.
Yeah. My wife's the general manager of our house. She keeps the train on the tracks. But I see here, like we've got a playroom. You can see it behind me.
Got it.
It's not uncommon at all for one of our moms that work here to have a kid with them, and hanging out in the playroom or whatever. I think and there's obviously there's different realities with moms and dads and just like the whole, that could be a whole podcast.
Yeah.
But I love the messaging in the sense that moms can be athletes too. And I think that it's really neat. Walk me through kind of and we talked a little bit about, your story of not being told you wouldn't be either. And now you're both, which I love, by the way, and congratulations.
Thanks.
But talk to me about kind of the people that you work with in that realm and that idea of athlete mom. I just love it. Like, I would imagine that spans a very wide spectrum of even what the definition of athlete is.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And so, it was a little play on words. So the Athlete Mom Project is AMP, and I think like amped for energy. So a lot of moms struggle with energy. So it was kind of like I don't know, maybe it's not punny because cool. I have to explain it. But so I've worked in a few different business mentorships too, and they had tried and advised against using the word athlete because as we get older, women have a tendency to not relate to that word. And that went against every fiber of my being because first of all, I want to work with athletes. Second of all, I want to help re-explain to women what the definition of an athlete
I was just
going
to ask what even in your, in your world.
Yeah. I mean,
an athlete?
So I think a lot of times like moms would be like, and I don't even want to say moms at all. I want to say people in general, but it's like maybe you're sitting 30 pounds heavier than you want and you're going to be slow. They might run the half marathon that they've been training for. They might still not identify as being an athlete because of how they look or their metrics compared to somebody else that did it.
Yeah.
And I think that is a reframing that is necessary because we are more than our weight, or our worth is more than our weight or what we look like. And so reframing, like, what does function mean? Like, if you're doing the thing, then you don't need to have a certain body to do the thing. Doing the thing, in fact, is makes you do the thing.
Right.
Yeah. And so, showing up, and if you're if somebody that goes to CrossFit recreational and you're doing it, like, you're an athlete, like, you're doing the thing, right? Like, if you've never run a half marathon before and you're training to do that, and yes, maybe you're sitting a little bit overweight, like, you're a freaking athlete, like, you're doing the thing. And so, like, I don't know when it got ingrained in us that, like, you got to have like a 6-pack abs and look jacked to be an athlete. Yeah.
It's funny. So I've been running, at least half marathons or longer for like 10 years, like a very long time. And it was somewhat recent. And I'm trying to remember the exact timeline of it. But I was chatting with my wife or whatever. And I made the comment that, like, I'm not really a runner. I run, like, I'm not really a runner. I run, but I'm not a runner. And then until I had run a few marathons by then. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I am kind of a runner. Yeah. Like, that's the weirdest thing but there was some power in identifying as something.
Yeah.
Like, whatever it was, like, and I don't know why I didn't identify as a runner. Maybe it's because I was slow or because who knows, but then I did. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, for me, at least personally, I felt like I was able to lean into it more.
Yeah.
Like,
what
confidently can say that I'm a runner.
What did it take for you to get there? What was the tipping point that you were finally like, I'm a runner now?
I think it was actually enough for me. It was enough external. People called me a runner enough. You know what I mean?
So again, that's where, like, so social media and all these external things, right? It's like you hear it enough that it reinforces, like, maybe the internal thing, but you had to hear it externally enough to be like, okay.
But I love it because, like, and then even until recently, it's probably more in my, like, ultra chapter and, hanging out with really, really, really good runners, like, people that push me and stuff, start referring to us as athletes and everything. Yeah. And then, and I just think that it provides a really cool feedback loop when you can confidently say you are something.
Yeah.
And then, it gives you validation and you start to act that way, behave that way. And so I actually really love the fact that it's called the Athlete Mom Project and using the word athlete because, like, I'll ask her tonight, but I'm curious if my wife identifies as an athlete, and she probably doesn't.
I would love to know.
But she runs marathons. It was funny just the other day, literally yesterday, my business partner and I were meeting up with our business coach at 32nd Street there on the river. And as we're pulling up, my wife's running by, in her Solomon vest and whatever. I'm like, check it, there she is, whatever. And she looked like a dang athlete.
Hell yeah.
But anyway, because I think there's power in, I think there's power in identifying as something. And I love how you're helping kind of define, what an athlete is.
Yeah. I mean, you are your environment, right? Like, you hear the quote, like, show me your friends, then I'll show you your future. Like, you're a culmination of the 5 closest people in your life. And so I think there's power in that about, like, coaching is more than just what I help somebody do, but the community that it brings, right? So bringing in people, and then they're now identifying with that community that they're athletes, right? So it's reshaping their identity for them beyond just like, it's the external validation too that's letting them change that internal narrative. And that's why like masterminds exist, or why you have running groups, or you have all of these things like CrossFit or the endurance world. Like, you being in those things lets you identify with being that, like, oh, maybe I do believe to be here. There's the opposite of that is true, where I have had a few clients that start working with me and they're like in cycling groups and they have felt a little bit bigger in their skin, and it's like that imposter syndrome. And she's like, I don't know if I have a place here, yet she's standing on podiums.
Right.
It's like, what do we need as humans to finally let ourselves associate with the thing that we want, right? But I think the power there is like, you have to identify with the next version of yourself before you actually get there. And by identifying it, that's what lets you do the actions to get you there. Like, it goes beyond just like where you're at now. Like, who do you want to become? And that's the hard part. It's hard to be somebody that you're not yet, or who you're working towards.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Darn that comfort zone. It's the worst thing, And so talk to me more about your story specifically too. Were there ever chapters there or moments when you didn't identify as an athlete? Like when you were recovering from injury or becoming a mom or any of those?
No.
No?
Yeah. I think that's why I'm really like, I want to have this be a thing. I think that's part of my personality though. Like, that's the one thing. Okay, I take that back. The times that I've not identified with an athlete is when I'm injured. And that's why like pain management and navigating injury and like how to do that in the mindset piece of helping people navigate that when they are injured, as like you still are that person even through injury, is like a core component of what I do. But like, I think I struggle the most of identity crisis when I'm not able to execute in the way that I want.
Right.
And that comes with injury. And I would associate pregnancy as an injury, because that is like, technically I'm not doing all of the things that I was used to before I got pregnant or had kids for that short period. And so I think we don't let moms see pregnancy as an injury of like, this is a shift in what our body can do right now.
Yeah. So you were telling me, or I was reading, I think maybe in your, just when I was preparing for this, but that there's basically 3 pillars to the coaching program. And I know mindset, movement, and nutrition, right? I'd love to go through those 3 if that is cool with you.
Yeah.
Let's start with the main one.
Yeah. Mindset.
Talk to me about mindset and why it's a pillar in your coaching programs, and it's such a big theme in the content that you put out. I mean, I've picked up on so much of that from you, but talk to me a little bit about why you think the mindset is kind of the primary pillar, or the foundation, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, your beliefs are your reality. And a lot of people, I mean, and I don't want to like pigeonhole just saying endurance athletes, but it's really easy to avoid feeling things or certain aspects by just doing, right? Like, put your head down and just do, or like, maybe we're avoiding something else and now we want to go run a marathon. And the bigger question is like, why? Like, why are we doing the thing? And a lot of times there comes with like, especially in the coaching world, it's like people want to lose weight, or they want to run their first half marathon, or they want to get stronger and look a certain way. But it's all surface level. Like, why do you want to lose weight? And then they'll give you an answer of like, so I can look good for my partner. Why do you need to look good for your partner? And you have to go deep. If you don't understand the core motivator behind people's reasoning, then what's it all for anyways? Because nutrition, it's like, it's so much deeper than like, here, I'm just going to tell you what to eat and then that's going to help you do the thing better. If you have problems with food, or you have a eating history that is really negative, or you had an eating disorder. Like, the mindset component is the driver to be successful at the thing, especially when you go in endurance. It's like when you start to break down, if you don't have your core why, you're not going to get very far.
Right.
And like, it goes back to like your beliefs or your reality. You have to, in most cases, shift certain people's beliefs of what they're capable of, and redefine that for them so that they can increase their capacity. And, I didn't understand this piece. And I think the injury piece for me, because I've been injured a lot in contact sports has really broken that down for me. Of the mindset piece is what's everything for if we can't love ourselves. Because if you take two people and let's say they want to lose 30 pounds, and you have one person, like, as a coach, I could give them the same tools to get them to lose 30 pounds. But if one person hates themselves on the way there, they're going to lose the 30 pounds based on what I said to do or whatever the internet told them to do. They're not going to be any happier there. But if you take the other person where maybe the progress is a little bit slower, but you learn to love yourself along the way, like, you make it sustainable, like, you're going to get to that 30-pound weight loss and you're actually going to be happy there. And so you can't just take this surface level goal and get to the goal without changing other aspects of our life, or you're never going to be happy.
Right. So, okay, I've got two things on that. One, I read a very interesting study, and is about the mindset. So they took two groups of hospitality workers, like hotel maids. I don't have the verbiage right now, but anyway, two groups of people that clean hotel rooms for a living.
Yeah.
And they took one group and they told them that the act of doing that was exercise, and then the other group, they didn't tell them that. And then they tested it, X number of days later or whatever. And the group that they made believe that what they were doing was, exercise and valuable movement, lost weight, had a reduction in waist size and all of these things. And the group that wasn't told that, but did the same thing, didn't see the same results. And I think it's it's fascinating to me of like, they literally were doing the same thing. And you would think that by just doing it, the result would happen. But I think it was as an indicator of how important it is of the belief in what you're doing. So I'm hypothetical for you, but let's just say from a mindset perspective, you're talking to somebody and they're saying that they're getting old, and that they're getting old, and whether, let's just say it's weight gain or lack of energy or whatever. And the mindset is it's because they're getting old. What would your advice be to them? And what would your response be?
Well, I'm going to show them a picture or a video of my jiu-jitsu professor that is 80 years old and will kick my ass. And so when you think about old, to him, age is just a number. And I'm a very strong female, and he makes me feel ashamed because he's so strong. So I would show them him, but also there are two types of people. It's like growth mindset versus fixed, right? So it's like there are certain people that it doesn't matter what you say to them, their mindset is fixed. And that's very different than somebody that's like, I feel like my body is getting older. Like, what can I do to improve that? It's different than somebody that's just like, this is just the way it is, and their mind's made up. Like, that's the whole different game of who you're talking to. One person is just fixed here, and nothing that you say is going to change that. And this other person is like acknowledging that their body's changing, but they're going to take that power into their own hands and figure out a way to make that work. Two totally different type of people.
Do you think one can become the other? Like, do you think somebody with a fixed mindset can learn to have a growth mindset?
I think by who they're around. Like, my mom is 63 years old, and I grew up in Illinois. I moved here 6 years ago. And so Illinois culture is very different than Durango. And a lot of people are limited to what their beliefs are based on their environment and who they're around. And so by default, by me moving out here and then my mom coming out and visiting more, like now subsequently she goes back to Illinois and has started to change her life because she's seen a different way and she sees 60-year-olds mountain biking out there and doing that, right? And so I think you can't change what you don't know. And so being able to change people's level of perception, I think, is a huge thing. But again, that's through doing, right? So if you want people to change, you have to be the foundation for that, for people to know what's possible, right? Like
you have to inspire by example.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but like, I mean, what, Alex Honnold or whatever, like it's like, he scales.
Yeah.
Like that defies everything that's possible. And so seeing that all of a sudden, like you see in the sports industry, people are able to do more and more because of one person that set the bar.
Are you familiar with the story of the guy who broke the first 4-minute mile?
No.
So I'll butcher the details, but you'll get the gist of it. There, for a very long time, nobody had ever ran a mile faster than 4 minutes. Like it was kind of thought of as like this this line that nobody would ever cross. And then, and however many years ago this was, but one guy finally broke it. And then like immediately after, like 30 others did. It changed the perspective of, what was possible. And all of a sudden that limit was moved. And then here came everybody else. It's an interesting thing, like you'd said, about kind of the environment.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting. And I think sometimes we maybe need to be a little bit careful with it in Durango, because they're like any other, it's funny, like I'm a very below average runner in Durango, but anywhere else I would be, people would be like, you do what? You're great. Like I went to, we've got some partners in Kentucky, and I went over there and did a guest presentation a little while back, and he was kind of like doing the intro for me before the conference. And I had just ran, Silverton Alpine 50K like 2 weeks before that. It was last summer. And there was just like, and he ran a 50K and like jaws are on the floor and it's like, this is crazy. And then, and then in Durango, it's
another walk in the park.
Somebody did it before work yesterday. It's no big deal. So it's probably a balancing act of definitely surrounding yourself with people that make you the best version of yourself, but then also realizing that, I don't know, not having too much of that comparison, like being intentional about the surroundings in terms of that it can lift you up, but not to let it diminish your personal achievements or, you versus you type stuff. It's just a funny anecdote on the sphere of Durango.
Yeah, no, it's all perspective. I mean, my son is 3 years old, and I think in 2 years he's gonna beat me up the trail on a mountain bike. Like, it's just like, I think I'm in great shape, and then there's like a 10-year-old boy or like a 60-year-old woman that like crushes me, and it's just like, okay, like, that just happened. It's a humble thing, and it's definitely, but also like we choose to be here. Well, at least like I choose to be, like I want that, and so like it pushes me. And again, comparison is the thief of joy, right? So you constantly have to like pull yourself back of like, it's really only worth comparing yourself to yourself,
right?
But then when you see everybody else, but it's also why, like, I mean, I try to be super transparent on social media because people can follow anybody from anywhere in the world, right? And so they see a sliver of your life and they now compare their entire life to 5% that you show them or that they can see, right?
Which is filtered and intentional and,
yeah, exactly. Like the best version. So I'll show the worst versions of myself, and we're all human. But it's like, somebody once told me a long time ago that if you wouldn't trade your entire life for theirs, it's not even worth the comparison, because it goes back to that capacity versus load. And it's, a few of my clients, it's like they've just now entered in the cycling world, and now they're still getting PRs and they're doing great. But then they're having like imposter syndrome of like, maybe women that have been in the field for 10, 20 years doing it and look a certain type of way. And it's like, you also have to realize you can't compare your year 1 or 2 to somebody else's like a decade, and so it goes back to awareness. Like you can't, like, in the pursuit of wanting to be better, like you have to also acknowledge where you're at, and it's not worth comparing where anybody else is at, because their capacity may be different than yours. Maybe they're 5 years postpartum, not 1, and they're sleeping every night. Maybe they're getting paid to do the athletic stuff. Maybe they, you know what I mean? And so it's just not like, it always brings me back to well, I would not give up my family. I wouldn't give up Bodhi. I wouldn't give up living here. I wouldn't give up all these stresses. So me looking a little bit different to look like that person, like it's not even worth comparing because I'm happy with where I'm at here.
Right. Do you think anybody could be an athlete?
Yes.
Regardless of age, body type?
Yeah, I think it's never too late. I think it goes back to all of the things that, you know, breaking it down of like, what's your nutrition look like what's sleep look like, what's your mental health, what's your belief system look like, all of those things. And I mean, you've heard, I'm sure you have, but stories of people that like, you know, got in car accidents and were told they were never able to walk again. And now they're able to like sprint, you know, and I think, you know, or people that have cancer and they don't anymore, like magically. I think there's like a higher power there of like your beliefs literally are your reality, and stress is the number one killer. Stress creates cancer. Like I think everybody walks around with cancer cells or the ability to like manifest that. But I don't know if you've heard that, which that was new to me like a little bit ago that I heard, but it's just like most people are able to override that, right? And it's just like letting stress compound you, that then becomes your narrative and your belief. And so if you want to do the thing, you have to change that belief. And that goes back to like if you think about like an iceberg, so there's like 5% of it that like goes above water and 95% is under. That's kind of like our mind body connection. And so like the 5% is like the cognitive brain, the knowing, where the 95% is subconscious. And so that's why like change is so hard, because it's like maybe you're in a bad relationship and like you know better, but yet the next person you date is the same pattern.
Right.
And so like our 5% brain is like, I know this is not best, but our body feels safe here because it's familiar. And so that's the 95%. And you can't change what you don't know. So it's like, if you keep telling yourself that you're never going to be an athlete or that you're old, well, you're going to continue to find.
Then that's true.
Yeah, then it's true, right? You're going to continue to find.
It's like the story we tell ourselves, you know, no matter what, is going to be true. Yeah. So, okay, talk to me. So mindset, movement, nutrition. Talk to me about movement and kind of how it works into the, you know, the 3 pillars and the importance of it, and you know how you talk to, and let's talk about it in the context of somebody who's entering this world for the first time, like you know, maybe it's a new mom or whatever, but you know, talk to me about movement.
Yeah, I mean I could talk about movement forever. That is. It's not a one size fits all, and it's going to look different for everybody, and really, really, really thinking about what capacity looks like. And so movement is something, first of all, that we get to do. Like you don't use it or you lose it. So like that is something that reshaping immediately of like, you get to do this. You don't have to do
like
this.
It's a celebration.
Yeah.
I maybe it was yesterday. I put on my Instagram story that running is fun and it's a celebration. You know, like we get to do these things. It's so anyway, I like the word choice.
Yeah. I mean, we get to like, I've been injured a ton, right? Like I said, through competitive sports, and it's like, it just constantly humbles me. Like, even though I love movement is medicine. We take it for granted until we don't have it. Like, you know, it's just, same thing as morbid, but when people pass, it's like there's nothing like people passing that really make us appreciate life, right? And it just really brings us back to what we get to do. But you know, for a new person that's maybe like never been in the consider themselves an athlete or have never really identified with movement, you got to meet them where they're at. And so, you know, again, it goes back to, you see other people that are exercising 5, 6, 7 times a week, and all of a sudden you think that's what it has to be for you. Like 6 times a week, you know, an hour a day at minimum. Otherwise, like, what's the point? And so I always like to ask the question of like, if I try to implement something for somebody and I ask them, do you feel like you can do this forever? And they say yes, then you're in a good spot. If they say no, then you've now put an expectation higher than that they can reach.
Right.
And so breaking it down so it actually feels so stupid easy that they can't not do it. Right. And so at least the conversation that I have, even with moms, where it's just like, well, I'd like to be able to work out 6 days a week, but they're like a new mom and they've like are not sleeping. And it's like, okay, realistically, like, what can you actually do? And they're like, well, maybe like once a week would be a really good start. And I'm like, then why did you tell me 6 days a week? You know, and so meeting them there, the opposite is true for like, okay, let's just say moms that, you know, were endurance athletes, became a mom, and now they like want to push that again. You have to figure out what their threshold is. Otherwise it's burnout.
Right.
And so that's a way different conversation that somebody's like, you really just need to make it feel easy to let them believe that they can do it for the rest of their life. that's different than somebody that's like could do 2 workouts every day, 6 days a week, and they're burning out. Like, and sometimes it's bringing them back to that. And so movement, like I like to think about is like, what can you do forever? And that's a good place to start, whether you're like a seasoned veteran athlete or a new mom trying to like get movement in again. It's like, it has to be this.
Meaning the type of movement, the frequency, the intensity. What do you mean?
Well, all of it. So again, like it goes back to why. Like this is why the mindset piece is the foundation, because so just to make it simple to explain, a lot of the clients that come and work with me, often they have big goals. So they want to do half marathon, ultras. Oh my gosh, I can't speak English. Marathons, ultras. They want to push, but then they also want to lose weight. And so there's conflicting goals here of like, I want to eat less to lose some body weight, but also you need to eat more to perform here.
Right.
And so the mindset piece is why it's the foundation, because if you can't get to the root of the main goal right now, then you're trying to light the candle at both ends. And so in order to have a successful movement experience, it goes back to the mindset and what the goal is. And so if it's summer, then it's like, we're not going to lose weight right now. We are going to eat enough food to expand your capacity so you can have more volume and load to run the races that you want to do, right?
Is that a and we'll talk about nutrition. Well, I'll save it for nutrition, actually. Well, now I'm going to ask it. Sorry. I've got to imagine that, especially, considering that the athlete mom world, that food dynamic is complex because, I think probably females in general have a tendency of way under fueling.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I lost my period for 6 years doing that.
Because of under fueling?
Yeah. Yeah. But I had 3 knee surgeries before I turned 21. And afterwards I graduated college and was like, what's next? And so for those of you listening and can't see, I'm 5'6", and at one point I weighed 180 pounds. After I gained a bunch of weight from my surgery, I went all the way down to almost 100 pounds. And so when you're young, your body's resilient. I was doing Spartan races. I was winning. Like I was competing at the elite level, did great. When I stopped, great. Now I was getting injured. My hair was falling out. I lost my period. I got acne, all of these things. And so when a lot of times, especially in the endurance world, like if you're just chronically doing that, it's like normal. Your body's used to it. Like This is just the fuel that we're getting. And often injury comes from the change of season, or we're just not doing the thing anymore. And then our body starts to break down because we're no longer in fight or flight. That's what I experienced personally. And so the eating more, especially for females, is really hard because, again, like I could go so many ways with this, but we think of calorie tracking as this like death sentence. And often people think about calorie tracking as only when they want to lose weight. And I see this even in my athlete clients where it's like they will diligently track calories and lose the weight. And then as soon as we go up into maintenance, they just won't track calories.
Right.
And it's like, you got to be as intentional with it when you're in this performance state and not when you're in this like diet state. And they're afraid to eat more. So it's like this out of sight, out of mind thing. Like, oh, it's just easier not to track, so I don't know what I'm eating. And they end up way overeating versus being intentional with what they're eating. And also like having the hard conversation with yourself of what is your freaking goal? Like if you want to do a century ride or go ride 100 miles, like why do you keep going back to like trying to lose weight right now? Or like look a certain way? Just because so-and-so gets on the bike and is leaner than you, if you want to perform right now, and that's your main goal, then guess what? The season that you're in is eating enough food.
Yeah.
And so that's really talking women through that and making them feel safe there, because it's really scary. And know that it's not permanent. Like after that season, guess what? We're going to flip the script and now we get to lose weight. But trying to do both leaves you not eating low enough to lose weight and not eating high enough to actually perform. Cue in, our body feels broken because we're trying to do all of the things, but yet we're not seeing results in either end of the spectrum. We're in the gray zone.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. So I used to, for a long time, I never took protein. Like I never took protein ever.
Like protein shakes?
Yeah, just supplemental protein.
Yeah.
And and then I started taking it more after lifting weights, because I'm like, I'm lifting weights. I got to build back my muscles. And not until very recently did I start having it regularly, even on just running days.
Really?
And I've noticed such a big difference in my energy levels. Like I used to crash in the afternoons, and all I've done differently is intake more protein.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah.
And my energy is more sustained and stuff. And it's almost comical in hindsight because I'm like, of course I need it after running just the same as after lifting.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same. But I had those weird, like, you know, I don't know if it was because I don't know. For some reason I had tied it to lifting weights. Like you lift weights, you have protein, that's what you do. Yeah. I never even considered the fact that I'm still tearing, you know, still need to repair muscles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's just funny, like the things that, you know, that you learn the hard way and then you start to do it and you feel the differences of it. Yeah. So that's a perfect segue to the nutrition side of it, which is the third pillar.
Yeah.
Talk to me about how nutrition plays into, you know, kind of this overall conversation.
Yeah. And I'm just always going to relate it back to the mindset, but you know, people think it's always more straightforward than it is. Like, cool, I have this goal of losing weight, so what do I need to eat? Or cool, I have this goal of running a marathon, what do I need to eat? And what it really comes down to is it's like we all have the story of what nutrition is for us, and it stems from like how we grew up, like the foods that we ate, how was it talked about in conversation with our parents, like do
a lot of the people you work with have an unhealthy relationship with food?
Yeah. I think
in what way?
I think a lot of people do to some degree. Like, well, I mean, for me, it was like my mom was afraid to eat fat because it would make her fat, right? Or I can't have carbs, or, you know, like the clean plate kid club or whatever.
Right.
You hear that, where it's just like, you know, resources are limited, so we eat whatever's in front of us, right? And not listening to hunger cues. Or, I mean, even just like as a parent, you probably understand this too about like the struggles with kids, and it's just like trying to get them to eat food and like
my middle child will not eat. And I had Dr. Doug Miller on a while back, and he's a doctor of psychology and one of my favorite guys. But we had a whole conversation on parenting, which it's a shameless plug. It's a good episode. But I learned about the consultative parent, and like he gave me some tips on how to handle the, you know, dinner time table.
Yeah.
But with my middle kid, for a while, we used to have like knockdown, drag out brawls over eating. And I would be like, you got to eat, you got to eat, you got to eat. And he just didn't want to eat.
Yeah.
And so now what we do is it's calm, cool, collected, no problem. We just are under the understanding that if you don't eat, you don't get dessert.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's fine. Like you eat as much as you want, but you can't have the cookie after, you know?
Yeah.
And it's been crazy because, you know, I'm trying my hardest to be a good dad. And it's a work in progress every day. You know, because I don't want to like accidentally create some weird relationship with food. And now he's very logical about it, and he's young, he's 5 years old. And even yesterday, I'm like, dude, you're the reason we're having pizza. You told everyone you wanted pizza, and now you're not eating your pizza. What's going on? No problem. But you know, just know you can't have ice cream after. That's it. And he didn't eat his pizza, and he didn't eat his ice cream, and it was no problem. And it's like, all right. So anyway, I got off track there, but it luckily I think there's where we were, is the clean plate syndrome, and just people's like the upbringing and their relationship with food.
Yeah.
And how complex they can be.
Oh yeah. And like maybe the traumas that you had, or maybe you didn't have any, but then you try not to do that for your kid, but then it's not what they needed, it's what you needed. So you end up parenting the wound that you needed, right? Like,
so that's funny. I grew up very religious. And we fasted once a month.
Okay.
And now I'm like, I need food with me all the time. Like if I even have a glimpse of hunger, I'm like, need to solve it right away.
Yeah.
And it's definitely from, you know,
for sure,
however many years of being starving and, you know, wishing I could eat. It's funny.
Yeah. No, it's again, it awareness, right? And so, you know, it's, like you said, trying to be a good parent and stuff. It's just like, you know, no matter how hard we try, we might still mess up. You know, we're going to do our best.
We'll mess them up in all new ways.
Yeah. And so even just like, talking and the route of parenting, like with Bodhi, it's instead of, because what I would hear when I was a kid was like, you can't have this until you have this. And so it was associating like what was good or bad food versus like, you know, if let's say we have like muffins in the house or a bagel or like something, and that's all, I mean, he's only 3, but if that's all he wants and we're trying to have like chicken or steak or something else, I'm going to create a plate that has the thing that he wants with what we're eating.
Right.
And not label it as like, you can't have this until we have this. It's just like, let me give you a little bit of it. Then you're going to also have it with our dinner. And if you're still hungry after, you can have the rest of what you wanted.
Yeah.
And trying not to label it as good or bad. And then in addition to like, he knows now, like when he eats meat, he like flexes at me and he's like protein, or like when he eats fruit, he's like, this gives me energy. And so just like, the education there and just trying to bring that conversation in versus like, a lot of the moms I work with, it's like they have, and I say moms, but like, I think like 50% of the clients I work with are moms. Like this is a female thing, I think. It's just like, they're afraid to let how they were raised maybe be how their kids were raised then and how they view food. And so the nutrition piece, again, it's why like everything goes back to mindset, because if your goal is to perform, then like why are we restricting? And so what does nutrition look like for each person is going to be drastically different depending on their goals. Also, like I'm really sensitive to eating disorders. Like I had one like where I just was starving myself. Right. So, a lot of people's relationship to tracking calories and things can feel like really obsessive or they're afraid. But what I try to educate on is like knowledge is power. And so there's coaches out there that's like, here's your macros, follow this. And it's like people will feel like they're failing if they mess up one day. And so I don't like looking at it that way, but more like, where are the gaps? And so you have to meet people where they're at. And that also goes with the understanding of their relationship to food, not just like where they're at from like how many calories they eat. And so like if somebody's eating like way over calories, I'm not going to restrict them 1,000 calories right off the bat. Like you have to meet them where they're at with that, in addition to the emotional piece of like, this is going to be a challenge to eat more, but like, if you don't, like, it's going to conflict with the goals you want. And so being able to be in alignment of this is the goal that I want. These are also your struggles with food. And it's as simple as like 1% better every day. Like you're not gonna, Rome wasn't built overnight. So like if you're really struggling to eat more, then maybe it's like, we're going to get you to eat an apple with breakfast. And that's the more that you're having that day. And it's just one small addition to one meal in the day, not change your entire meal right off the bat. I think people get afraid of working with a coach or working with people because they think all of the things they love are going to be taken away from them overnight. And that's not true. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like because with intentionality with it, you can tie it in to the goal, whatever it is. And because like you'd mentioned, I think a lot of times people's approach unintentionally can be conflicting.
Yeah.
Doing whatever to lose weight or, so then you're under fueling and then it's impacting these other things.
Yeah.
And it's all this kind of holistic piece to it.
Yeah.
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 So I want to talk a little bit more about the mindset side of it. Cause I'm fascinated with, and I know that that's the kind of the foundation of it all. When you refer to the term mindset, talk to me about it simply in terms of like how it relates to the movement and the medicine and goals and all of that stuff. At this foundation, like when you strip out everything else from the top, what are some of the most important characteristics or characteristics, for lack of a better term, but things that you want to instill with people about their mind as it relates to the rest of it?
Yeah, I think so anxiety is like, not always, but living anywhere other than the present, right? So maybe it's like you have a race coming up and there's some anxiousness there, or you want to lose weight. And so you're feeling the pressure to like lose the weight. And so you're just always living the anxiety of like the future, or maybe like you overate one weekend and now you're like anxious about that. Right. And so really bringing people back to the present, because it goes back to the example of if you have two people and they both want to lose 30 pounds, if you hate yourself to the way there, then you're not actually going to be happy. And so going back to like, how do you want to live your life every day? Like, how do you want to feel in your body?
Kind of like the movement thing you were talking about with being able to do it forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and and I know it's really cliche, but it's process, not outcome, right? I mean, even in like the race world, right, where it's like that podium, or like in jiu-jitsu, like that day or whatever it is, it's like that's like 1% of your year.
Right.
And you spend 99% outside of that in the process. And so if you're always consumed with like the outcome of something in the future, then you're always going to be anxious and you're not going to actually enjoy the process. And so that's why it goes back to like, what does your dream day look like? And you need to figure that out, because if we can't identify that, then you're always going to be pushing for the outcome, but you never actually get there, right? Because it's, you can set the goal of like, I want to lose 30 pounds. But then when you get there, it's like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Right? There's always a next goal. So it's like
finish line fallacy.
Exactly. Yeah. And people think like, oh, as soon as I make more money, I can chill. And it's like, well, no, because then you probably spend more money on other stuff and now you need to make more money.
Right.
Right. And so exactly, finish line fallacy. And so like really helping people create what their ideal day looks like. So it's like, if you want to go run a marathon and then you tell me that you're a mom of 3 and you're a stay-at-home mom and you have financial stress, like if you were to close your eyes and like have your dream day, what does that look like? Let's create that and then try to build actions that now get you to your goal based off of your dream day, not trying to fit your day into your dream life. Like let's do it in reverse.
Yeah, which is a good way to look at it, because well, I mean, it's like that you've heard it 1,000 times, but the guy that likes to walk is going to walk further than the guy that's walking for the finish line.
Yeah.
Enjoying the process.
Yeah. So have you heard the fisherman analogy? Or like
yes.
The story? Yeah.
I think so, but share it.
Okay. Yeah, where it's just like there's a fisherman and like I'll butcher the details, but he's like in a small coastal Spanish town or whatever, and he's fishing, and a businessman comes on vacation and he's like impressed with what he does, and he's just trying to talk to him about how to make more money, and it's like the fisherman keeps asking like him why or like how, and it's like the businessman's like, well, you could have more, like basically like how to bring more people in, and then you have more ships, and then you can sell it, and then eventually you need to go to New York and you have a whole empire. And the fisherman's like, and then what? And the guy's like, well, so then you can retire and live in a coastal town and fish. And he's like, well, that's what I'm doing right now, and I think it goes back to that, where it's just like, even in what I do, it's just like, as a business owner, we want to like grow and have more time with our family and all this stuff, and it's like you get so caught up in like, well, I just need to make XYZ and I need to do this, and then I can finally relax and enjoy time with my family. And it's like, well, actually I can put my phone down and still enjoy time with my family right now. Right. And it's the same thing in the endurance world or with what your body looks like. It's like, yeah, you can ideate that when you lose 30 pounds, you're going to love the body that you're in and look in a mirror and be happy. But also, like, you can close your eyes and take a deep breath and still feel that same peace in your body now before you get there.
What do you tell people who are struggling with that? Like, let's just say, well, even in my life, I'm like, I've accomplished everything I've ever wanted to and more.
Yeah.
But then I'm hungry as can be every day and whatever, and it might not be a perfect example of it, but let's just say that, somebody's listening that's kind of struggling with that. That's like, they've got the finish line fallacy. I'll be happy after the next promotion, or after I lose the weight, or after I finish this race, or, whatever it might be. And they've seen a track record of that maybe not happening. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is so nuanced because it's different for every person, but this is, for me, why I've lived by movement as medicine, because that's the one thing that brings me back to present, because I relate to what you said, and where it's like the life that I have right now is more than I ever thought that I would have. Like, legit, in a journal, like 7 or 8 years ago, before I ever moved to Durango, like the amount of money, who I was with, having dogs and a kid, like being in the mountains, that was what I wrote before I even knew that I could create that life. And then now I have that, and all of a sudden it's not enough. Right. And I think we all get trapped in that. And I think so desire is like amazing because it's helped with human evolution, like the desire for more and wanting to grow. But also it's like a destroyer because like we're always going to have it. Right. And so being able to lean in on it because, but when you are in sync with being in alignment of what it is you're doing, it's easy to keep growing, right? But also knowing that like you're never actually going to get there either. But leaning in on what brings you the most joy, what brings you presence. And so for me, like when I start to feel even stressed out about like, even though I have everything I ever wanted, it's still not enough. It's just like, what brings me present? And it's like, well, not having my phone at dinner, right? It's going for ice cream. It's going and not bringing my phone or headphones and just going for a run without anything and being present. And so what does that look like for people? Some of the moms I talk to, it's like 5 minutes of having coffee before their kids wake up. Right. And so it's so simple, but it just goes back to like presence. How can you enjoy the body that you're in now in the pursuit of more? Because both can exist. You can be happy and sad at the same time. You can want to lose weight and also be happy with where you're at. You can want to, make more money, but also be stoked at where you're at. Like they both can exist. And I think as humans, we are so caught up on like, you only want the next thing. And I don't know about you, but if I never felt pain, then the joy and the good things wouldn't be as good.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't have a heartbeat. You would just be dead even. But the lows let the highs be even higher. And so, I don't know, learning to embrace that.
I like that, the idea of finding presence, even like, brief moments of it. I turned off my phone. There was a holiday weekend recently, like Memorial Day or something. And I turned off my phone for 72 hours. I literally turned it off, which I'm tied to my phone. My business is on my phone. I mean, I'm on it way too much, especially around my kids. I'm working on it, but I turned it off for 72 hours and it was the most refreshing, recharging. Because I think, the technology does probably two things for us. One is it thrusts us into that comparison mode.
Yeah.
We're looking at whatever we're looking at. Like for me, it's usually financial. I'm like, I need to be further ahead or whatever. And while doing that, it takes us away from everything we've already got.
Yeah.
Time from our kids or, enjoying our views or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that I just like that piece of, that you can still be pursuing whatever the goal is. And I think that pursuit is a very good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's necessary.
Yeah.
But those moments of presence, I think, are that stood out to me. It was a cool way of saying it.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think athletes in general are like very type A people where it's just easy to like nose to the grindstone and like more is better. Right. And it's just so easy to do that or like override pain or all of these things. And, for me, it's been a really hard lesson of like more isn't always better. And sometimes less lets us recruit the capacity for more when we need it.
I had Avery Collins. He's an elite ultra runner. He lives in Silverton and a great guy. I had him on the show, and it was a cool one because he took a year off from racing, and he's been competing, pro and elite for like 10 years in the ultra world, which is a very long career. And he took a year off from racing last year, and now this year he's just crushing it. And it was a cool, and it was a bigger picture example of how important rest is. Like no matter what it is, whether we're talking in the context of athletes or businesses or whatever, but slowing down to speed up.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to capacity. And I think my whole life I've limited my capacity because I didn't eat enough in so many ways, despite all the things that I've pushed and done athletically. And, 4 summers ago, I was pregnant. The summer after that was early postpartum. It was hard to do stuff. Then I broke my foot the summer after that. And even for me personally, this summer is the first summer that I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm not trying to look a certain way. And I don't have a race. I'm just enjoying the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And I've had the most fun.
And you're probably in better shape.
I'm doing so much better. Yeah. And it's like, my body isn't maybe like, in quote, if I were to close my eyes, what I think a dream body would be. But like, I mean, for me, like Monday, I ran like the night before at like 7 p.m. I was like, I'm going to go car camp and do Handy's Peak in the morning. And like, we did the long way in and like, I wasn't sore. I wasn't impacted. I could have run the whole thing. Like I felt great. And it was like, there's no pressure to perform. Like the only pressure that we have is the pressure we put
on ourselves. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And it's just like,
Strava.
Yeah. Well, I don't, that's a whole nother conversation. I deleted Strava.
Good.
Cause I was like, I don't even want to know what I was doing.
Strava bar. I don't check it anymore.
Yeah. Like so many people are like, with all of the things you do, you don't have Strava. And I'm like, that's exactly why I don't have Strava because I don't want to fucking know.
You're watching it's like, anyway. So
yeah, exactly. Like, oh, last month I did this many more miles than this month. You're a failure. But I cannot look at that. And I think it took me being injured again. Like injuries always bring me back. But it was just like, what is it you want to get out of life this summer? Like literally, what is it? And I was like, I want to wake up and be in shape to like, either I'm going to go bike for 8 hours, or I'm going to do a 14er, or I'm going to randomly sign up for a jiu-jitsu competition. Like, I want to be in shape to do whatever the hell I want without having to give it a second thought.
Right.
It was like, that's okay with me right now.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chandler, thank you so much. This has been a really fun conversation. I've got a gift for you.
Oh, hell yeah.
These are my Inspire by Example shirts. Let me know if it's the right size after. But because you really are, I just want to thank you for giving me some time today, letting me pick your brain a little bit. But bigger than that is it's been really fun to see you get into an environment where you're just thriving. And like, I can tell you're passionate about your work, and the message that you're putting out there is so great. And the lives that you're getting, the impact from, the coaching business, the social media content, I mean, all this stuff. So I want to thank you on a larger level for that, because it's refreshing, and you're inspiring by example, and it's great. So anyway, thanks for the conversation, but also thanks for what you're doing, beyond here, because it's refreshing. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation. And, one of the things that social media is great about is we live in the same town and we haven't really talked much, but like being able to stay connected. And I'm really glad that we have. And I've never done an in-person podcast. So hell yeah, that was awesome. But just really cool to come in and have that chat with you. And just, it means a lot. So appreciate you too.
Thank you.